Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're starting Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter 17, entitled The Divisions of Faith, text 15. It's January 28th, 2024. And here in person, there's Damayanti, Garuda, Luis, Bhakta Eze, Parampara. And here online, there's Lakshmi Priya, Valerie Allison, Anasuya, and Bhaktin Kim. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll start with the words responsively. Okay, so Anudvega. Karam Vakyam Satyam Priya Hitam Cha Yat Svadhyaya Abhyasanam Cha Eva Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate. Okay, now one line at a time responsively. Anudvega Karambakyam Satyam Priya Hitam Shayat Svadhyaya Bhyasanam Chaiva Vanmaya Tapa Uchyate Anudvega Karambakyam Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat Svadhyaya Bhyasanam Chaiva Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate Anudvega Karambakyam Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat Svadhyaya Bhyasanam Chaiva Vanmayam Tapo Uchyate
Anudvega Karambakyam
Anudvega Karambakyam
Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat
Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat
Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva
Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva
Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate
Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate
Anudvega Karambakyam
Anudvega Karambakyam
Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat
Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat
Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva
Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva
Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate
Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate
Anudvega Karambakyam
Anudvega Karambakyam
Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat
Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat
Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva
Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva
Yam Tapa Uchyate
Vanmaya Tapa Uchyate. Would anyone online like to lead the chanting?
Anudvega Karambakyam
Anudvega Karambakyam
Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat
Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat
Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva
Svadhyaya Vyasanam Chaiva
Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate.
Vanmayam Tapa Uchyate. All right, so now we'll look at the word meanings responsively. Anudvega, not agitating. Karam, producing. Vakyam, words. Satyam, truthful. Priya, dear. Hitam, beneficial. Cha, also. Yat, which. Svadhyaya, Vedic study. Abhyasanam, practice. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Vanmayam, of the voice. Tapa, austerity. Uchyate is said to be. Translation. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially, and in avoiding speech that offends. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. One should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others. Of course, when a teacher speaks, he can speak the truth for the instruction of his students. But such a teacher should not speak to others who are not his students if he will agitate their minds. This is penance as far as talking is concerned. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. I'll read that sentence again. Besides that, one should not talk nonsense. Oh, okay. When speaking in spiritual circles, one's statements must be upheld by the scriptures. One should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he is saying. At the same time, such talk should be very pleasurable to the ear. By such discussions, one may derive the highest benefit and elevate human society. There is a limitless stock of Vedic literature, and one should study this. This is called penance of speech. Okay. So I'm gonna, before we continue our discussion, I'm gonna recite some further mantras to continue to invoke auspiciousness in our gathering. These mantras are found on page 1 of Bhagavad-gita as it is, so you can listen or chant along. This is called the Mangala-charana mantras. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpati Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Bhagavad-gita chapter 17 text 15. Anudvega Karambakyam Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat Swadhyaya Bhyasanam Chaiva Vanmayam Tapo Uchyate. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially, and in avoiding speech that offends. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. Hare Krishna. So this is assertiveness training, I statements, needs, that sort of thing. Whether Bhagavad-gita got it from Safetov or NVC, it's a whole discussion, but that's what we're doing here. Okay, so Krishna, he's speaking this text and he calls it austerity of speech. So that's an interesting term. It's a very appropriate term. Okay, and this really is a quintessential assertiveness verse. Yeah, I'll share something about my history. So I was involved in the human potential movement dating back to the 1970s. It's like so many decades we can't even count ago. Okay, really, the 1970s. I'm not exaggerating. 1970s.
The 20th century.
Yeah, right.
Deep into the 20th century.
Yeah, deep in there. Right. Okay. All right. I'm just looking at the group here. There's a few who know the 1970s here. So I was involved in the human potential movement starting like in 1980. I got trained at a short-term crisis intervention center in like short-term counseling, communication. So I've been involved in communications training for 45 years. And after about a year at the hotline walk-in crisis center, no internet in those days, it was telephone and walk-in. And I accepted responsibility to like direct the program to train new counselors, person-centered, kind of a Rogerian-centered approach, that sort of thing. Okay, and at about the same time in my life, 1979, 1980, there, I also started reading Prabhupada's books, taking a lot of the spiritual food of the Krishna consciousness movement called Prasadam. And I started reading some Prabhupada's small books. Summer of 1983, I was backpacking around Europe, and actually it's called Villa Vrindavan outside of Florence, Italy. It's a Bhakti Yoga ashram. And over a period of about a week, I read Bhagavad-gita cover to cover, whole thing. And so, okay. And so I was very, we won't go to all the chapters of my story, but yeah, so, so I was very attracted to like personal growth and personal development, still am. As some of you know, like conduct seminars and things like that. And so like all the principles, okay, and empathy, and this is like assertiveness, and 100% responsibility, and be, do, have, and clear intention, and win-win, and I could go on and on. All right, and then I was so then as I was studying the philosophy of Bhakti Yoga, I found that I didn't need to give anything up that I was attracted to in the personal transformation, human potential. I found like, oh, there's nothing different here. At the same time, I was finding that in Prabhupada's teachings in Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, that all those principles are there with completion. Prabhupada gives the analogy, like if we have a string of zeros, what's the value? A big zero, 10 zeros, 20 zeros. But if we put the one in front, then the one gives value to that, and then it becomes a trillion and a quadrillion, big number. Okay. So I was finding that all those principles I was attracted to, it finds its completion, perfection, most sublime application in Krishna consciousness. And in one sense, you can say the recent decades of my life are dedicated to illustrate conceptually and experientially how everything that's valid in these fields of leadership training, communication training, personal transformation, et cetera, everything that's valid finds its perfection, completion, origin, source, and most sublime application in the philosophy of Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which are the follow-up book. For example, okay, that, so they're in personal transformation, self-development, there's the principle, 100, we're, try on the set of clothes that I'm 100% responsible for my life. Okay, right, rather than playing the victim and all that. All right, so like that was attractive to me. I first took those trainings at 18 years old, and I was kind of depressed at that time, and then I was like very uncomfortable, but like, oh yeah, I'm 100% responsible. And then I started like really living the life I want to live. For me, that looked like switching from engineering major to psychology major, and I did different things. Okay, like not just like go on automatic and be kind of just quiet desperation, that sort of thing. Oh yeah, 100% responsibility. But then so I was in communication. Like actually, like I remember my mother and sister, they used to host like really some of the top transformational facilitators in the world would have dinner at our place, and Gert Wolf would cook these amazing feasts for them. I'm not going to say what it was, but like because there wasn't like the prashad or even the vegetarian thing, but yeah, no, they. So I was very friendly with them, and they I could say names, John Webb and Mike Burtwhistle and John Hanley and et cetera, et cetera. And no, these were the top names. What's that?
These are real people. Burt Whistle is a real person.
Is it? Yeah, no, I didn't make it up. Couldn't make it up. Right? Yeah. So yeah, and they said they said you should be a transformational facilitator, because they just kind of saw how I was. I said that's what you should do that. And so of course I didn't do it for that organization, but I ended up following their advice, as it turned out. So I was sort of, but I would ask questions like, okay, so 100% responsibility. Great. Okay, so like for the results in my life, for my experience of life, different dimensions, responsibility, experiential, practical, cosmic. Okay. All right, but then how's that work? Because now these places, these seminars, for the most part, they came from a secular humanist point of view. Secular humanist point of view. We can call it a blank slate point of view. Some of you have heard me share, because yeah, I've been involved in human potential movement since the 1970s, so like 45 years. And I've taken a lot of seminars, been involved a lot. So there's two basic approaches to transformation. One we'll call the blank slate approach. And that's where these organizations were coming from that I was involved with in those days, the 70s and 80s. But even since then, like I participated in Landmark Forum, so you might be familiar with some of these things. And blank slate means that at the core, we are nothing. And on the foundation of that nothing, we can invent any possibility we choose. So that's not where we come from in Bhagavad-gita or transformative communication or Sampato. We don't come from the blank slate approach. We come from what I'll call the diamond approach. About a year ago, I read a fantastic book by Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa of Avila, called The Interior Castle. And the whole book, from hundreds of years ago, it's based on that analogy that the self, the soul inside the body is a diamond, like 7 facets, and in the most inner recesses of the diamond, there's that region of the soul in pure devotional love to source, to God, like that. Very beautiful book. So we don't come from Bhagavad-gita. It's not about we. Bhagavad-gita doesn't come from blank slate approach. It comes from the approach of diamond, that at the core, we're not nothing, but metaphorically, we're this diamond. Okay, we're that irreducible quanta of consciousness that inhabits the body. We're not the body. It's described earlier in Gita. Tihinosmi yata dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir diras tatrana muyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. Right? So it's not like, well, I believe this, but I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew, I'm white, I'm black, I'm Russian. No, we all, it's science, it's not belief. We've all experienced our body changes, and still there's some constant identity that I call David, you call Luis. We can say, well, the body grows. Technically, it's not true. It's not like the molecules got bigger and bigger, right? From chemistry, there's not one molecule, not one atom in the body now that was there when we were 5 years old. Still, there's some constant identity. We all experience that, regardless of, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. It just does not to do with it. The body changes their constant identity. So that indicates that that identity is something completely non-physical. It's like an empirical proof, completely non-physical. And so only the body gets destroyed, and that atomic unit of sentience that inhabits the body, that's the actual self. So, okay, so I would ask them, like, so how's that work? Right. So the idea is like we're a diamond, and just like a diamond is always brilliant and shining and effulgent and strong. And a diamond can get covered. A diamond can get covered by dust, dirt, 10 feet of mud. So to different degrees, we've allowed the diamond that we are to get covered. So transformation, it's not a process of invention. It's a process of uncovering and cleansing and letting the natural effulgence of the diamond we are shine brightly. Okay. And so that's a whole process given in Bhagavad-gita, how to do that. The technical name for the process is Bhakti Yoga. So I would ask these top facilitators, yeah, I say, well, okay, so then it's 100% responsibility, great. Okay, but then how's it work that someone is born with a silver spoon, the silver spoon in their mouth, and they have all these opportunities and maybe wealthy and nice conditions and all opportunities for education and maybe attractive features, and someone else is born maybe sick and in poverty and disease and no parents not around, drug culture. Yeah. So like it's just well, that's just like random chance. But then at some point, then 100% responsibility. Just like, huh? So like something incomplete here. And then I'm reading Bhagavad-gita. They're outside Florence, Italy in 1983. And like that, I'm saying, oh, okay, this completes it. Not to give up the principle of 100% responsibility. Oh, but this has its complete. That, okay. So like I, David Wolf, the person I actually am, existed before this body was born at Albert Einstein Hospital on December 3rd, 1960, in a big snowstorm in Philadelphia in the Logan and Olney region. Okay, so yeah, and so just like in this body, right? Like let's say if we develop a consciousness of like we really appreciate to study and to be scholarly and like that. Okay, so then maybe that will lead to, oh, I'll be in the university, I'll get degrees. If we develop a mentality of like, how can I cheat people? How can I violate people? All right, then we're gonna probably get a body we'll be in a prison house and we'll get a different set of clothes according to our conscience, no accident. So similarly, before the lifetime in the body called David Wolf, I had developed according to what I did, what I deserved. And God predicted, it's no accident, right? So yeah, so like I'm responsible. I'm the source of even who my parents were and the economic situation, the circumstances of my birth. And I said, oh, okay, all right. So then this 100% responsibility, then that completes it, that connects the dots. And with every principle, it was like that. And so That's just a big part of my attraction to this philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So this verse, this really is, so it says the austerity of speech. What's that mean? So austerity essentially means to give up some immediate gratification for some longer term enduring fulfillment. Okay. And someone can say, well, oh, I don't want to do austerity. I'm not going to do austerity. So wrong. You're going to do austerity. Every human does austerity. It's just intrinsically human. Our choice is how to direct our austerity. I'm not going to do any austerity like Bhagavad-gita. I'm going to do what I want to do. Yeah, I guess I go to a job for 60 hours a week that I hate, but I'm not going to do any austerity. Yeah. So if you want to get a degree, you want to become expert at playing guitar, you want to become that millionaire. Now you're gonna dedicate when you do the 100-hour work week. You want to go to the beach every weekend, but you're going to study those books to pass that exam. That's called austerity. To give up some immediate gratification for some enduring fulfillment, and it's described in the Bhagavatam. Deho deha pajam niloke kastan kaman arti vid pujame tapo divya. Same word as here. Yes, that tapa vanmayam tapuche. So Vishabhadev says tapo divyam puchakena sattvam shuddhya yasmad brahma sakyam tvanantam. He says human life is meant for divine austerity. We're going to do austerity. Our question, and I'll just a bit of an aside. This whole section of Bhagavad-gita, chapter 17 into chapter 18, Krishna looks at about 20 areas of life, and he analyzes them in terms of the three modes of nature and transcendence. So, for example, he looks at charity. Right? He says it's kind of like we all want to be charitable. We all want to give charity. It's sort of part of an adult life, right? Like once we become adult, or maybe we begin to get an allowance, and I want to give money to something good. It's like a very human thing to do. It's very human, even if we just have a little money. Oh, but I'll give something to the homeless, to the public television station, or something. We all want to do that. So it's analyzed here. What does charity look like in tamas, the mode of inertia? What's it look like in rajas, the mode of passion? What's it look like in sattva, the mode of goodness? What's it look like in Shuddha Sattva? We were talking about yesterday, the distinction relationship between Sattva and Shuddha Sattva. We won't go much into it now. It's so talking about we're all going to seek knowledge. It's just like, because we're chit potency, the soul. We are eternally full of bliss and knowledge. So we're going to seek knowledge. And we could seek it in Bhagavad Gita. We can seek it in who won the playoffs. What's the stock market doing? It's the soul's propensity to seek knowledge. So it talks about seeking knowledge in the different modes. It talks about faith. Someone can say, I'm not a person of faith, I'm a person of reason. Everyone's a person of faith, everyone. Okay. Again, the question is simply where to place my faith. Because, without fail, our actions reveal our faith. I'm just a person of reason. Even if, okay, so that I turn the key in the ignition, if people still do that, I don't know, whatever, So if I start the car, I have faith. There's not a bomb. If I go to that job, or I dedicate myself to that business for 50 hours a week, well, I trust that's going to bring me a sense of accomplishment and power and goodness, and that's going to bring me happiness and the prestige, whatever. How we use our time, it's like that shows faith. I'm using my time this way. Just like there's many things we could be doing on a Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. And here we are discussing Bhagavad-gita. So I must have some shraddha, some faith there. So Krishna is looking at about 20 different areas of life in terms of the different modes and what it looks like and what the effects are. And in the 1990s, one of the things we did as part of our PhD studies we developed the Vedic personality inventory. It's a personality assessment tool, like the Myers-Briggs or the Minnesota multiphasic, based on the psychology of Bhagavad-gita. My professors asked me, how come you want to develop such a thing? And my response was, I said, I want to establish an empirical basis for happiness. An empirical basis for happiness, for empowerment, for inner peace, for security, for satisfaction, for vitality, all those experiences that everyone's looking for. Because the Vedas, and so the hypotheses, we used the VPI as one of the measurement tools for the main part of the dissertation, which was controlled studies on the effects of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The dissertation is entitled Effects of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on Stress, Depression, and the Three Gunas. So we got people who didn't have any previous experience with mantra meditation, and they chanted every day, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. And the results were that it validated the Vedic hypotheses that those who chant this sublime mantra will have less stress, greater life satisfaction, less depression, etc. So the Vedas, they discuss different modes of life. Everything's permeated by the modes of nature. And the Vedas assert that to the extent that one develops sattvic, as opposed to rajasic or tamasic habits and worldviews, that will correlate positively with all those experiences we're looking for: joy, peace, freedom, security, etc. So here, Krishna's talking about speech, austerity. So it is austere. That's my experience. Because, okay, let's say in tamas means inertia, controlled by fear. So it's like there's an interpersonal situation. And like, I'm scared to say what's really true for me. Ever been in that sort of situation? You don't even have to. All right. So, yeah, I mean, if we had like, the 8.2 billion people on the planet, like everyone, yeah, I've been in that situation. Okay. Now, of course, there's a distinction that's described in Bhagavad-gita. And so there's a place in this chapter, Prabhupada says, silence, true silence means one's always meditating on self-realization. So there's a distinction between I choose silence. Yeah, I got some things to say. I'm choosing not to say it now. This isn't the environment. That's different than I'm too scared to speak. What about my approval? This person might not like me. I might be rejected. I'll be ostracized. I'll be ridiculed if I speak my truth. I'm too scared. Okay, then that's tamas. And it's also some other. All right, so as the saying goes, pretty common saying in personal growth, if we're only willing to do what's easy, life will be hard. If we're ready to do what's hard, life is easy. So I'm not going to speak, I'm too scared, and then life is hard. It's easy to do that, to just not do anything, but then life is hard. Because then I'm not my integrity, and I'm living in, and I feel weak, and because I am weak, and I'm kind of violating my own principles and integrity. All right. Then also a rajasic expression, that can be relatively easy too. Like, okay, I'm going to say my perspective. I'm going to say the truth. Here it is. Here it is. Here's the truth. In your face. In your face. I'm just being honest. See if you can handle it. All right. So that can be relatively easy. But then the austerity, and one's just going to blurt it out. Here it is. Take it or leave it. But the austerity is like, okay, I'm going to connect with courage to express my perspective, express my truth, and really sincerely do it in a way that's priya, dear, hitam, beneficial, where I know I'm giving my 100% sincere effort to communicate in a way where the person gets my care. Not that in the name of caring, I'm going to compromise or water it down. I'm speaking boldly, courageously, powerfully, and in a way where I know I'm giving 100% effort that you get that I'm coming from a caring place. In a sense, I'm caring enough about you to not care whether you like me. And I'm doing it in a way where what I have to say might not be comfortable, might not be pleasant, might be difficult to hear, but I'm doing it in a way where I'm not obnoxious or arrogant or dominant, or I want to make you wrong and me right. So I know for me, that's an austerity. Even though I've been involved in these things since the 1970s, that really requires me to like control my mind and look at my motivations and be honest with myself and be courageous and simultaneously caring. That's an austerity. And to the extent that I'm able to do that, then life is easy, because then I'm in my integrity, and then the relationships are real. They're not based on a mask or a facade, and I'm not polluting the whole atmosphere with my uncontrolled anger. Maybe I'll express anger in a way where you get my care. Not easy. And so that's why this is the origin and source of assertiveness training. It truly is. And we shared earlier about the one in front of the zeros. So truthfully beneficial. And Krishna talks about to recite the Vedas regularly. Yeah, that, as several of you have heard me say, I'm really not interested. I've never been interested per se in just collecting communication tools, collecting communication skills. I am enthused about a communication-based approach to self-realization. So that in cultivating capacity to listen, to hear, to empathize, to communicate in sattvic mode assertively, it's not just a bunch of zeros. It's not just a bunch of zeros. We're not simply supporting each other to reinforce let's call it the bodily conception of life. Because that Saint Francis said, we're searching for what is searching. Meaning, we'll tend to search externally for in doing this and having that. If I could just have whatever, that car or that position in the company or this person in relationship, or then I'll be happy and free and secure and blissful. And Saint Francis is saying that's always an illusion. Similarly, the Greek Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, the essence of all philosophy is to live such that one's happiness depends as little as possible on external things. So, right. So to the extent that I'm alienated from myself, the spirit soul that I actually am, and I'm to the extent that I'm thinking I'm this body. Well, here's the thing: to the extent we're thinking we're this body, to the extent we're not realizing we're not the body, then it's cats and dogs life. It's animal life. And maybe with refined communication capacities, but it's animal life. Because and get nothing against the animals. Every species has its like special gift and talent and place in God's creation, sure. And in the human species, it's described kamasya nendriya pritir, labo jiveta yavata, jivasitakta jigyasa natuyascha karmanbi. That it's recommended in the Bhagavad-gita. Life's desire should never be directed towards self, towards sense gratification. One should aspire for a healthy life, self-preservation, keep the body and soul together, take care of the car. human life is meant for inquiry into the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works, of one's desires. So absolute, what's that mean? Absolute. It means that truth which is good and true and beautiful in all time and space. Get excited. I'm David Wolf. I'm 63 years old. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's relative truth. That's not going to satisfy. Was I David Wolf 200 years ago? Will I be David Wolf 200 trillion years in the future? No. And even a time frame like hundreds of trillions of years, that's not even a lightning flash compared to the timeless life of the actual self. So I'm not this body. I'm that eternal spirit soul. I'm a servant of God. Krishna. Krishna is a name for God. That's true in all time and space. And realizing that and living according to that truth, that will completely satisfy me. That will completely satisfy. So even if we develop communication skills like this really is the quintessential assertiveness verse, chapter 17, text 15. Or whatever qualities we develop, it's a bunch of zeros to the extent we're not supporting self and each other to realize who we are and who we're not, and what's the ultimate purpose and opportunity as spirit souls having a human experience. Prabhupada quoted Teilhard de Chardin yesterday in his class. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, just like outside there, spiritual beings having a cat experience or a blade of grass experience. Okay, so yeah, it's described. So Yasyasti Bhakti Bhagavad-gita Kinchana Sarvaya Gunes Tatra Samasate Sura Harav Habhaktasya Kuto Mahadguna Manoratena Sati Davato Bahi. That to the extent that we develop our original propensity for self-realization and serving God with love, then all the sattvic qualities naturally manifest. And simultaneously, as we discussed yesterday, it's part of our process of devotional service to consciously cultivate the sattvic qualities. And the other side of it, Harava Bhaktisya Maho Kutomahadguna Manoratena Sati Davatamai. And to the extent that we're not connected in our career, in our relationships with self-realization, then even if they're so-called good qualities, it's just like it's empty. It's a bunch of zeros. And then so much of life that's like what consumerist society is about. Like if I just maybe buy more things and get bigger things, then I'll be able to numb the pain of this emptiness. Okay. So this Bhagavad-gita gives this process, bhakti yoga, for the self to actually be fulfilled. It's a very world embracing process, not world rejecting, just like so much of our presentation is about fields of psychology. It is said about the field of modern psychology. First, modern psychology lost its soul, then it lost its consciousness, and then it lost its mind altogether. So if we look at the history of psychology, right, the original theories 100 years ago, taking the soul out of it, as we go further into taking morality out of it and get into like the behavioristic approaches, then the idea there's not even anything such as a mind. It's just like Pavlov's dogs. It's just like action and response. They're just taking the mind out of it. So it's just like pretty depressing. So now we gave a little thought exercise earlier. And yeah, the body changes. There's some constant identity. So this is about using in every profession, any respectable profession. It's not meant to be rejected. It's meant to be utilized to support us and the whole world to realize these truths that actually give true fulfillment. There's a verse by Sri Narada Muni in the Bhagavatam. He speaks to his disciple Srila Vyasadeva, and he says, Idam mi bhumsas tapasa shutasyava sutasya sviktasya chabudi datayo adichu turta kavibir nirupito yadutamashloka gunanuvarnanam. And he talks there. And Srila Prabhupada talks in the purport. They talk about psychology. They talk about economics, they talk about politics, chemistry, physics, art, all the human professions. They say they're not meant to be rejected in spiritual life. They're meant to be used in spiritual ways, used for self-realization and in glorification of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's what we mean by very world embracing, to use our intelligence, how to put self-realization, bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness in the center of my career, my efforts to maintain a livelihood, my relationships, my eating, my sleeping, and to whatever extent we want to embrace this process. The guidance is given. There's no force. Krishna speaks the entire Bhagavad-gita to Arjuna. Then at the end he says, Vimrishesha dasheshena yate chasita taku, which translates, Krishna says, Arjuna, consider carefully what I have said. Interesting phrase. Consider carefully what I have said, and then do as you wish to do. So, no force. Once there's force, once there's coercion, and there's no love. This is all based on, Prabhupada emphasizes so much, Krishna consciousness. It's based on volunteer spirit. It's based on love. It's based on choice. Now, when Krishna says that to Arjuna, he's not saying, so I don't care what you do. No, Krishna is caring. Like, I want you to choose for your best interest. I want you to choose wisely. At the same time, no force. We're not going to interfere with your natural self-determination. Okay, so this text is chapter 17, text 15. Bhagavad-gita, Anudvegakram Vakyam Satyam Priyahitam Chayat Svadhyaya Vyasam Chayavad Vanmayam Tapuchyate. Austerity of speech consists in speaking truthfully and beneficially, and in avoiding speech that offends. One should also recite the Vedas regularly. Recite the Vedas means, okay, in using assertiveness, courageous, considerate communication, that we're conscious that all our vibrations serve the absolute truth. Hare Krishna, thanks for listening. Thanks for your presence. Hare Krishna. Parampara Prabhu.
Actually, gonna walk home and come back.
Okay, yeah.
But I want to say it before, just short, that you were talking about austerity, and that some people may be like, oh, I don't do austerity, but then, oh, maybe they work a job, or they, they go to school or something. But it's like somebody said, like, I don't even do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking of, like in this country, at least we have Thanksgiving, a big feast. But you can imagine any big feast.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will like not eat breakfast, or like fast.
Right.
Until
Yeah,
the
that's
big
good.
feast.
Yeah.
Because it's like giving up, but like, well, this meal wouldn't be that, that wouldn't be that good. But this bigger feast later,
I'm going to enjoy more
I'm
later.
gonna
Yeah.
save my
Yeah.
capacity.
My hunger.
for the
Yeah.
big thing. So
Thanks for that.
even that's a form of austerity also.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks thanks very much. Yes, because then, and like if we want to like try to avoid it, like I just want to indulge in an indulgent, reckless life of hedonism and just enjoy my senses.
We can do that.
It's a choice. And then still, we're going to do some austerity, but basically we're sending the message to the universe. When I leave this body, give me an animal body, because the other species, they don't do austerity. So if that's the consciousness we're developing, we're basically sending messages like, no, human life is meant to voluntarily do austerity for eternal happiness. But but even like, no, I didn't want to do austerity to like, have my business successful or to be a good athlete into something material. Of course, athletics and business can also be engaged in spiritual life. No, I just want to be a couch potato. I just want to just like TV and junk food, and that's it. Okay. Still, as you're pointing out, we're not going to completely avoid austerity, but then we're sending the message to the universe with our consciousness. Just give me an animals, because the animals, time to eat. There's not just like, I think I'll fast for 2 days and get some shakti. Animals don't do that. Time to have sex, time to defend and fight, Here, the idea is like, oh, someone's insulted me, and I want to defend and fight, but okay, I'm going to do the austerity of tolerating, and like that. So it's like a special opportunity of the human form to voluntarily do austerity, and if we cultivate a consciousness, now I just want to recklessly enjoy my gross external senses, indulge in that. Okay, then we don't want the human form. So next life will be the body of a pig or something like that. Thank you. Bhakta Eze.
And like maybe it's no longer voluntary, but it's like you said, oh, I just want to be a couch potato or whatever. Then I need to do the austerity of living with the consequences. Like I'm probably struggling financially, I'm struggling with my health, so I'm still gonna have to tolerate hardship one way or the other.
Yes. Thanks for that. Yeah, it's going to come. It's going to come on us.
Yeah.
Yes. We're not going to avoid that. Life will be difficult. Yeah, life will be a struggle. And then if we take to the process of Krishna consciousness, then there's no more disturbance and struggle. Well, no. So my experience, and with tens of thousands of people, I've been around a while, so everyone's struggling. So it's going to be there. And Bhagavad-gita says, Amevam Chujva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Manasasti Jinani, Prakriti Stani, Parshati. Yeah, that we're struggling with the senses. We're struggling with there's disturbances from other people, disturbances from pandemics, disturbances from own mind. So everyone's struggling. So that's there. So then the question is, what is a worthwhile struggle? Yeah, and so I cannot say, since I started chanting Hare Krishna more than 40 years ago, no more struggles. No, I'm struggling. At the same time, I can say for sure, struggling on the path of bhakti, Krishna consciousness, that's a fulfilling, worthwhile struggle. And even, it seems to me, I'm making like exceedingly slow progress, an inch, every decade or something. At the same time, for me, it's true, even an inch of progress on that path is worth more than millions of miles on any other path. Any other path, in my experience, it's like a futile struggle. So what's a worthwhile struggle? Damayanti.
Well, two things. One is the other day my friend gave me feedback. I mean, she didn't
We're good.
She didn't give me feedback in like a perfectly.
Sattvic way.
No, it was sattvic. It wasn't using an exact formula from this communication model or that communication model.
Right.
And it had emotion in it, and it was all for my benefit. That's one. I just want to say, just recently experienced someone was courageous enough, give me feedback.
Yes.
That was constructive, and it was done kindly, and
Yeah.
it wasn't formulated in a
Yeah,
perfect
it wasn't according to it.
model out there. It was just being a good friend. And I felt pain, and we have enough trust, and it's just amazing, this friend of mine, that we're not going through the same trainings and
Yes.
even the same religion or
Right.
but there's just this essential seeing eye to eye, like we're just parallel paths with values, and she has amazing listening and coaching skills, and I don't know where she got it from. I don't know, it's just
Natural. It's very natural.
it's a friend from childhood, from when I was 10 years old. So anyway, I'm really grateful for this friend. She just gave me feedback, and it was a risk for her, and she said this, I apologize if this is not being said kindly. but this is my experience of you, and this is, I'm actually uncomfortable. And she's, you know, it was really, it was uncomfortable for both of us.
I'm here,
but-
you're appreciating, she required to connect with a lot of courage to share,
Yeah.
to really care about the relationship, to share honestly.
Yeah, and it was done with warmth, and it was succinct too, it wasn't going on and on,
Yeah.
it was just, let me put it out there. And then I was like, oh, and anyway, I felt like, this is a real friend. Because like, she could just judge me, she could, you know, distance herself from me, but instead, she had faith enough in me and enough care for me to stay close and be honest and clear the air, and I received it because I actually value it. That I felt, and I was like, "You're a real friend." You know, that was my feedback for her, and so I just had that this week and thought to share. And then I have one more point now, if you.
I hear your appreciation, and I'm hearing that, not that she's studied this verse or Bhagavad-gita or been through the same seminars you've been to or trainings, but like she's just naturally living this principle, and she expressed herself honestly and caringly, and you're appreciating her as a true friend.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually really like that feedback. And you know, that first moment of receiving feedback from people, honest, you know, communication, there's like a pain, and then there's this like this huge relief that someone cared enough to help me out, because I am struggling, and I'd rather, you know, I'd rather be approached and helped out basically than alone with my struggles and being ignorant or something. And the one other thing I wanted to say was, you know, I've heard of austerity of speech, and that one should speak truthfully and beneficially. I've heard it outside of Bhagavad-gita
Sure.
too.
Yeah.
And there's like these three, I heard this in another realm, I don't know who said it, but it was like, whatever you speak, it should be kind, beneficial, and necessary, or something. Or true, kind,
Factual,
something along those lines.
different acronyms, yeah.
Anyway, but I like how this puts the emphasis on reciting the Vedas regularly. The Vedas, Veda means truth, right?
Veda means truth, and
So,
it's the one in front of the zero.
so that's truthful speaking.
Yeah,
And I'm just making that connection that you can speak the truth, but like, what's the ultimate truth? Are we even speaking about the ultimate truth?
yeah,
And then I liked how it says in spiritual circles, one statement must be upheld by the scriptures.
yeah.
And one should at once quote from scriptural authority to back up what he's saying. Anyway, it's like really kind of a stronger emphasis in this approach I never really heard before on speaking from absolute truth and Vedic literature. And it just put a new perspective on like, you know, I mean, we're all probably, you know, I'm forgetting about the ultimate truth, and
Yeah.
I do care a lot about the truth. Like, it's one of my values from, I don't know, it's just a value that I've carried. Like, what is the truth in the situation? Like, I really value that. And then but am I even how much am I bringing absolute truth into conversation, and backing it up by scripture and quotes and script, you know? So anyway, it was just a new angle to look at, like speaking truthfully, like bringing in the absolute truth to regular. I mean, I do try, it does happen, but anyway, just it was illuminating, and thank you.
Thank you, Damayanti. I appreciate very much how you're moved and impacted towards you know, through this verse, and you know, what it's adding for you. Thank you, Damayanti. I see there are some hands online, and Luis.
I was curious about the statement in avoiding speech that offends.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So in a situation like you're trying to tell somebody that's struggling, for example, with alcoholism or
Yeah.
drug use.
Yeah.
The truth would be, and the beneficial thing, if they're not aware of their problem, is for you to tell them, like, you know, you're drinking too much, or you're using too much. But that offense, or at least for that person, it will come up as offensive. So like in those situations, like what's the right approach according to this philosophy?
Thank you, Luis. Thank you. Yeah, that's like an aspect of the text I really didn't touch on much, if at all. So I'm glad you're highlighting it. Thank you. You said like if someone's an alcohol, we want to tell them the truth and they might feel offended. They might feel offended. I guess for me, this relates to a distinction that like, to look at like, what's my consciousness? Where am I coming from? Okay. And that I want to come from a place where I'm not being offensive and I'm not trying to destroy someone. I'm not coming from a selfish, I'm truly coming from a caring place. Now, even if I'm perfect, which I'm pretty much always not, but even if I'm completely good and not being offensive, it doesn't mean that someone else won't take offense. And then that's between them and God. Sure, it's always pretty much always helpful for me to humbly take a look at how could I have been more gentle in communicating the truth, like in the name of avoiding speech offense. Not that I want to suppress sharing the caring truth. Let's take maybe extreme examples, say someone like Jesus. Okay, so he was never offensive. At the same time, we can't say no one took offense, right? So not that we want to imitate Jesus, but we want to aspire in that direction. And the fact is, if we're speaking truth, whether on an individual level or a community level, global level, and even if we're doing our best to be gentle and godly and caring, some people are attached to falsity, and so they might take offense. So it means like, yeah, something I say, so someone might be very fine. This might be very difficult to hear, but I'm doing my best to not communicate it in a way that's obnoxious, unpleasant. So like, okay, like in that situation that you describe, it's like if I'm saying you're such a you're the stupid, irresponsible person and you're ruining, and it may be like I'm calling names. And then I'm like being offensive. I'm being offensive. And maybe it's coming from, maybe because for this family member to sober up, it's about my image. It's not even so much caring about them, but like that reflects badly on me. And I don't say that, but that my personal or like that. And that's different from like, it's not about me, but I care enough about you that I'm really worried that you're destroying your life with this drinking. Okay, so like I'm using I statements. I'm owning it's not about it's not about how it reflects on me. But it's like I care enough about you that I'm really worried about you. I'm worried about your family. Yeah, and I mean, come on, the past 2 months you've been in prison 3 times. And it's just the fact. And like I'm doing my best to come from a loving place and look in the mirror. And then if you still take offense, it's between you and God. Thank you, Luis. Okay. And see. And then Allison wrote, yes, fulfilling worthwhile struggle. Nichigopal wrote, think true, helpful, inspirational necessity. Think, okay, he has an acronym there. And Nichigopal, you have your hand up. Hey, thanks for your written comment. Do you want to make a spoken comment?
Yeah, thank you very much, Bro, for this wonderful discussion on austerity of the speech. And while he was talking about this, I was just reflecting one verse from Bhagavatam, which specifically talk about the power of tapasya, power of austerities. It says, Srajami tapasa vedam, grasami tapasa puna, vibramami tapasa vishvam, viryam me duscharam tapaha. The words spoken by the Lord. It says, translation I'm just repeating. I create this cosmos by such penance. I maintain it by same energy. And I withdrew it all by the same energy. Therefore, the potency is the penance only. So Prabhupada talks about in the purport how the penance has Krishna's power. Krishna has invested his own power, his own energies in the process of penance. So the more we perform penance, the more we are accessing the Lord's energy to create our spiritual life, to destroy the ignorance, and to maintain our spiritual consciousness.
Thank you, Nichigopo, for that reference from Bhagavad-gita. Yeah. Yeah, I just said austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins. The Brahmins are kind of like those in society who are particularly responsible to cultivate knowledge and share knowledge. By knowledge, I don't just mean like information or data, like how many windows are in the Empire State Building, or who won the World Cup in 1954. We're just saying actual knowledge is, well, the foundation of that is realizing the distinction between matter and spirit, between the body and the soul, and what's the function of the soul. That's spiritual knowledge. So, and yeah, and so austerity, just like now, okay, we all did some austerity. We got up pretty early, and we're coming. There's other things. We could be sleeping right now at 9 o'clock. Or we could just be watching TV or something like that. No, we're just austerity. God, really, chants and Hare Krishna, Kirtan, Bhagavad-gita, and then I'm feeling alive in knowledge compared to if I didn't do austerity. Again, if we're willing to do what's hard, life will be easy. You know, I'm feeling like energized for the day, alive in who I am and purposeful like that. Okay, now get with me in 3 hours, we'll see where I am. Did I do austerity? Did I indulge in things other than austerity? But austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins, and with austerity, then naturally it's an environment conducive for spiritual knowledge, and the whole creation is from the penance of the Supreme. Thank you, Nichigopa. Wonderful verse from the Bhagavad.
And also just wanted to make a reference how much austerity is important from Krishna's point of view. How much Krishna wants us to do austerity, that he himself incarnate as Nar Narayana to perform austerities in Badrikashama. He's performing austerity just to show us how important it is in the Himalayas.
Thank you, Nichigopal. Nichigopal is referring to an expansion of Krishna. We don't hear or talk too much about the Narayan incarnation, described a bit in the first, second canto, and then the 11th canto, and it's an incarnation, the personification of divine austerity. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a share.
Valerie.
How I'm relating to this is I really value vulnerability and openness. And I've noticed that I'm like really open and vulnerable with people, and I'll share my process and things that I'm learning. And what I'm learning now is to be austere with what I share with certain people, because I'm noticing that with some people, when I'm vulnerable and when I'm open, it creates a lot of disturbance for me. If I am subconsciously wanting validation from that person, and so I'm being really open and vulnerable. And yeah, I'm noticing that it creates disturbance. And so I'm learning to be austere with what I share and how much I reveal of myself to some people.
Thanks for sharing that, Valerie. Thanks for your personal sharing. It's personal, I know. And it relates to an important facet of this discussion, these principles in the philosophical and psychological sense, because we often quote Srila Rupa Goswami from Nectar of Instruction, Guyamakiti Prichati. Rupa Goswami talks about different qualities that are vital in relationships between persons dedicated to spiritual life and self-realization. And so 2 of those are Guyamakiti Prichati, means to create a space in the relationship that's conducive for revealing the heart and mind confidentially and for inquiring confidentially. Okay. And so, yeah, because we can talk about like vulnerability. The whole Bhagavad-gita starts in chapter 1 with Arjuna being vulnerable in this most trusted friendship with Krishna. So if we vulnerable, then that enhances. No, because there's in the Bible, there's the statement, don't throw pearls before swine. Okay, so there's that principle too. And so, okay, so there's apparently contradictory principles. one principle is like, yeah, if like something is confidential, keep it quiet. Keep it quiet. Otherwise, I'm gonna do this, blah, blah, blah. I have this plan, this goes in the ether and it just diffuses the power. Just keep it to myself. And then that's an austerity and keeps its potency rather than, here's my plan, I'm doing this one, like that. And then like, at the same time, there's the Guyamakiti Prichati principle. So we have there's something vulnerable. Yes, thanks for that. Like we have something vulnerable. If we share it, like I'll call it in a proper container, then it gains potency. And we're all familiar with coaching. Many of us conduct coaching. Okay, like if there's a proper container, like here's a goal, I'm sharing it with a coach in confidence, and I'm stating it. Well, I'm setting up an accountability check that increases the potency. Whereas if I just kept it to myself, oh, maybe I do it, maybe I don't, no one will know. But I'm sharing a proper container, and then I'm more likely to follow through and create the life I want in important ways. At the same time, if I'm sharing, whether it's a goal or an emotional, something fragile emotionally, if I share it in an improper container, then it just becomes messy. It just becomes messy. So like both principles have their truth. Don't throw pearls before swine. Like I have something very intimate, vulnerable. Maybe it's a vision. Maybe it's something happening for me that feels maybe embarrassing. And if I share it before swine, so to speak, then I feel degraded. I'm not my integrity. It's not their fault. I didn't use proper discretion. At the same time, there's the principle we just bottle things up. Okay, then it festers and then it jams my system. So we want to create proper, appropriate, life enriching, relationship promoting, truly spiritual containers with it to share things. So yeah, it's the idea of vulnerability. We talk a lot about that, personal transformation, vulnerability, like that. At the same time, that's not just like, so just like, yeah, always, well, in one sense, we can strive. I like to strive to always be vulnerable in the sense of like in a like a childlike spirit of discovery. At the same time, always to be vulnerable doesn't mean like I'm just going to wear my heart on my sleeve and just share anything with anybody because I'm so honest. No, that's just like lack of discretion, and then things become cheapened. Thanks for your sharing, Bella. Srimad Bhagavatam. Also, Bhagavad-gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you all for your presence and attention. Hare Krishna. Thank you. I hope. Hare Krishna.